First thing I'm going to tell you, your son's not in jail. He's not in jail. No, he called us from jail. No, your son's not in jail. They still didn't believe me. And I then started telling them, did they ask you for money? Yes. Did they ask you to go get gift cards? No, they wanted cash. Did they tell you to put it in an envelope? And the mother held the envelope up with $10,000 cash in that envelope.
Welcome to the Powerhouse Podcast, presented to you by Sac Life TV.
Hi, this is Topo Padilla, and I want to thank my family at Greg Padilla Bail Bonds for sponsoring the Powerhouse Podcast. We are always involved in the community, so if you ever find yourself in need of calling a bail bonds, you can call us at 446-BOND or find us at PadillaBailBonds.com. Sac Life TV and the Powerhouse Podcast want to thank Mosley Collins for his unwavering support of our podcast that keeps people informed. If you ever need legal help, call Mosley Collins Law at 444-4444. That's all fours for legal help. Let's talk about the scam. The scams have been going on. I started dealing with them back in 2007 and 2008. They've been going on that long. They just get prevalent and then they kind of disappear and back. So tell people, the viewers, about the scam.
So as for the scam, what it is people will, these scammers will reach out to loved ones of people that have been in custody, might not even be in custody, anything anybody can find to reach out to a loved one and tell them that their family member is in jail. In a sheer point of panic, family members immediately say, well, how can I get them out of that situation? Rather than doing research and trying to look into it, they wanted things done as quickly as possible. So these scammers tell these people, hey, go down to your local convenience store or grocery store, buy these gift cards, then go and pay with these gift cards on this website. Or they say, hey, go down and use these other forms of payment at all different types of stores, not through a bank directly. And they get people for thousands of dollars. As for the highest I've heard is $10,000, probably more. The lowest is just $1,500. But when it comes to $1,500, it's $1,500 now, and then in an hour it's another $1,500. So it's and come to find out, their loved ones were never in jail in the first place, and they were never in trouble. As a quick story of an example of it, luckily we got the person to stop where they were at and not to complete the transaction. But we had a person that we knew had a family member who they got that phone call and they were told that their loved one was in custody. And they went through all this stuff, and right at the end, right when they were about to finish, they contacted, I believe it was you that they contacted, and said, hey, can you see if my grandson is in custody? Okay, well, then you started asking, of course, the obvious questions, name and date of birth. Well, it came to a little bit hard part when the date of birth came out that the child was only like 12 years old, which didn't make any sense, but the grandparent didn't understand the system of how things work and who gets bail and who doesn't get bail. And they were almost scammed, I want to say, out of $5,000.
Tell them about what they do. They say your grandson's in jail and what they do to make them really believe that he's in jail.
When they go through all this stuff, there's these data platforms that they can go through to get this information, and also through social media, but they'll give them the names, dates of birth. They'll give them the address of where they live. They'll say that, hey, they contacted us and told us they wanted us to contact you to get them out of custody. But of course, that's just not true.
And they'll go as far as saying, hey, he's right here.
Yeah.
Pretend like he's on the phone.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. With the technology that we have these days, we have AI, of course, that can basically copy someone's voice, whether it's exact or not exact. But I mean, when a person is crying or anything along those lines, you can make anybody sound like anybody. And to make it sound like a child or an older person or even a person of a different ethnicity, you can definitely get those out there, and they'll play a recording for you and make it sound like that person is standing there right next to them. They will not only call and say that they're from a bail bonds company, they'll also call and say, hey, we're with the sheriff's department. We are a sergeant. We are a lieutenant with them. And then when you build that trust with that person because you hear that they're from law enforcement. But I can 100% guarantee law enforcement will never, ever call you directly and say, hey, send us this amount of money and we will let them go. That is not a law enforcement job, or that's not how they operate.
Yeah. So the GPS part of it, they'll tell them, hey, don't, somebody's in jail. You don't need to go pay a bail bond. You can pay for a GPS.
That's correct. So you can pay for a GPS monitor. Of course, we have seen that a lot of different agencies are out on GPS monitor as for the clients themselves. And these scammers are truly playing into that, and they're playing their cards in the right way. They're telling people that all you need to do is pay us $1,200 now and then $500 a month. And then your loved one will get out on a GPS monitor, or even a situation where a person's out on bail and that scammer will call and somehow or another get who bailed that person out of custody, and call that family member and tell them that, hey, we're going to take your family member back to jail unless you put them on a GPS monitor. The first thing a person should do in that situation is contact that bail bonds company directly. Contact that law enforcement directly and confirm that this is them actually calling and not just a scammer that's in a different country, different state, different part of the world. So I would just recommend, rather than jumping into things and jumping to conclusions, to do your own investigative work and call someone that you know that's trusted and that you can confirm.
What about if they get a call and the phone number shows up as Sacramento County Sheriff's Department?
That's when it comes to technology these days, is you can make any phone numbers come up as saying they're from there. Honestly, the only thing where these scammers can't get around is when you hang up from them and you call back directly to that jail, to that sheriff's department, to that bail bonds company. They can't get around from that. They can't reroute the calls. So it's one of those things where take a step back, take a breather, relax, and do your own investigation and make sure everything's true.
So let's talk about the people that are being focused on. Now, again, right now we're on the scam. We haven't gotten to the scheme. We're going to get there in a minute. The scam, they focus on maybe not the parents, but the grandparents. So elderly people maybe having memory problems or get flustered real easy. What should they do?
They should immediately reach out to, I would recommend reaching out to law enforcement or reaching out to a trusted source, a trusted family member. And I mean, what I've learned is there's actually classes that people can actually go to that are local classes where they can send their grandparents, their parents. And I don't think that there's a limit on age that should be able to go to these things. And there's not a limit on age, but at the same time, understanding when something's too good to be true. If it's too good to be true, it's probably not true.
Yeah.
So
the class you're talking about, and I just went to it the other day, it was a senior scammer seminar. Correct. And it was put on by Assembly Member Josh Hoover and Assembly Member Maggie Krell. And they put this on, and I went to it with my parent. My dad actually went to it. I would say I thought I was going to be the youngest one in the room. No, it was awesome to see the number of people, my age or younger, with their parent there, and hearing the stories that I heard. I think it's an awesome thing that our legislature is doing and getting out there and educating people. It was amazing, but the stories that were heard, and I got to speak at it. And when I told the story about what we're going to talk about next, which is the scheme, people were like, oh my gosh, I've gotten that call. The number of people that came out to me, I was like, whoa. And this, I'm not here to promote me, our company, what we do. This is about alerting the public, educating the public, so that people don't fall victims. This is already illegal. It's already illegal to fraudulently scam somebody out of money. But I want to say that there is a bill currently in the legislature, AB 1927, that Assemblymember Maggie Krell is carrying to make what we're going to talk about next illegal, But to make it scamming somebody out of money on this jail thing illegal, and one of the things that we have to do in California a lot is make things illegaler. It is a term that I've used for a long time. I'm going to one day get it in Wikipedia, but it's making things illegaler. So, and it's not a joke. I'm not trying to be funny, but we really have to reinforce these laws. So now let's go on to talk about the bail scheme. I use the word scheme because this right now wobbles on, parts of it could be legal, parts of it could be illegal. So tell people about the scheme and what actual bail agents are doing that I find reprehensible.
Yeah. So how the scheme, what the scheme is a situation where if a person is taken into custody, and there are actually people that are taken into custody, where they maybe don't want particular family members or friends or grandparents to know of their situation, in which that is their privacy, that is their right. Yes, a person taken into custody is public information, but at the same time, we need to have the respect for everyone to know who to talk to, who not to talk to, who it might hurt them worse for a certain family member to know. And they might not want to know about their private life of things that are going on. So the way it works in a way is that there is a person who goes down to local jails and gets a list every single day at 6 a.m. and scans that list into their computer. That list is then compiled into an AI database that goes through and runs every single person on that list with what they're in custody for. Then the bail bonds company that is doing this scheme picks and chooses with what charges they want to look for. Now, depending on the charges, there's certain charges that have a higher chance of not getting filed on, so there's less liability. So they look towards that. But when it comes to reaching out to people, now, although right now it's not illegal to cold call people, but the fact of the matter is it's difference between right and wrong. I mean, there's things that are illegal that are actually okay. I mean, the speed limit's 65 miles an hour, but I mean, if you go 66 mile an hour, it's not the end of the world. But when it comes to this kind of stuff, as an example, I have a person that I know who was taken into custody on some charges. They weren't the most serious charges, but in his culture, they are the most serious charges. And the fact of the matter is that that person would never want me to call his parents or his grandparents. And his parents and his grandparents both got these calls. Now, when it comes down to it, that bail bonds company went over to those people's house, said, your son will not be released unless you pay me this money. He told me to come down here. There's no form of jail recorded calls where he contacted that bail bonds company to go on his behalf to his family member's house and collect that money or collect any form of that premium for the bail bond for him to get out. And it really, when he did end up bailing out of jail, we were the ones who did it. And long and short is that person's family received, I would say in a way of very disgusted phone calls from that company stating that those people aren't trusted. You did it the wrong way. Your family member already told me to come get you out. And it's just one of those things. It's disheartening, I would say, for the most part, when it comes to people making phone calls to people's family on these cold calls and not understanding that maybe that family member didn't talk to him. Maybe that family member would have known about this. And maybe when it comes to where they come from in their background, they wouldn't be looked at a certain way. And in the end, that guy's charges ended up getting dropped. But in the culture he grew up in, the prosecution of a person's mental state or how they are based in their family is done between them. It's not done between the court of law. So it was just one of those things that really hurt his family, but at the same time, it brought us back to understand that this is something that is still going on, and this is something that seriously needs to be addressed.
Well, again, some member Maggie Krell is so far this bill, and by the time this airs, I hope it is passed through both houses and headed to the governor's desk. I think that the governor should really look at it. And I just want to tell you, let's say nothing is done. Let's say it is not illegal. Imagine if somebody does go to jail. And imagine we as bail bonds, and there's in Sacramento County, there's probably 30 to 45. Imagine if all of us did the same thing and just started cold calling people, saying, hey, your loved one's in jail. Your loved one, man, not only would the public hate us, I would be there along with them going, I hate you guys too. Because I'll tell you what, I will shut the doors to my company before I ever fall prey to cold calling people, deciding who should get notified as a family member. And I call them and I say, hey, your loved one's in jail for this. And I think it's wrong. I won't do it. We won't do it. I guarantee you 95% plus of people in the bail bond profession despise this activity, and the public's behind us, the legislature's behind us. So, one of the things that domestic violence, let's say, let's talk about a man goes to jail for domestic violence, and this bail bondsman looks through the list and he goes, oh, there's her husband. What goes wrong there?
Say, for example, that husband is in custody, or that wife is in custody, and say law enforcement gave that person a protective order. With that protective order, it takes to a point where when the bail bondsman reaches out to that loved one and says, hey, I spoke with your husband, or I spoke with your wife, and they said, hey, call them, they'll help me get out of jail. That's a violation of that protective order, in which more charges can be added, and it puts him in another, basically, I would say, a financial position of maybe getting more charges added, or not financial position, but more of a criminal position, and make their case maybe it wasn't as bad as it sounded, but by the fact that they're saying that your loved one said to call this person, it might make it sound worse, in which you can't. That's still a violation of a protective order. So, I mean, when it comes to these phone calls and it comes to these scammers, people are going to be who they are. When it comes to bail bonds companies, and how these schemes go is they say, hey, we can get your loved one out right away. What people need to know in the community is that we don't control release times. We don't control how fast a person gets out. It doesn't matter who you are, what bail bonds company you are, what attorney you are. We don't control how fast a person gets released from custody. Every single jail facility is different. And it's one of those things that we just facilitate the release. And the fact of the matter is that these people go around and say, hey, I can get your family member out in 1 hour. That's not true. That's not true. I can probably name 5 jails where, yeah, you can get out in 1 hour. But the fact of the matter is that it's a sales technique. And with this cold calling, they put you in a sense of something needs to be done now, rather than making those proper phone calls to trusted businesses or trusted companies. I mean, there's tons of bail bonds companies who I know of that I trust with calling for help on different situations. And it's one of those things that the public just needs to understand, that things don't need to be done right now. They need to be done in a basically timely manner, but at the same time, take a step back, take a breath. Not to go off subject in a way, but I had a gentleman quite a while ago. He asked me. I mean, I'll ask him. It's kind of a loaded question, but what's the most important thing in life?
Freedom.
Well, and that is right, but it brings it back to a situation where the most important thing in life is breathing.
True.
And the second most important thing in life is your health, and number 3 is your freedom. Once you be selfish and you take and take all those 3 things, you got to be selfish before you can help others. So when you're getting these phone calls on these schemes and stuff along those lines, take a step back, take a breath, relax, think about the freedom, but at the same time, understand that maybe helping your family member in this time is not about just immediately just throwing money at a situation. It's about making proper phone calls, doing your own research, and trying to figure out who can best help you in a time of need.
So let's talk about that. I mean, we're not going to go through all 58 counties.
I know.
Somebody does get one of these calls. What is a step they could do towards law enforcement help them? And I will say that Sheriff Jim Cooper realized how important this was and did a post on it. And it was a great post about, people calling. It's funny when they run the scam. Now back to the scam, they don't call and say, hey, this is Deputy so-and-so from the Sheriff's Department. They always call it, this is Sergeant, this is Lieutenant. And Sheriff Cooper, they put out a video, and it was great. It was fantastic. More need to be done across the state. But what could people do to call law enforcement to trust, maybe to verify this information?
Yeah, I mean, I would just recommend contacting your local non-emergency number. And if the family member lives in another county separate from you, contact the non-emergency number from that local county and just inquire. Or you could reach out to a local bail bondsman that's in that area and ask them. I mean, we are licensed bail bond agents. We are licensed with the state of California. So and some of these people that are calling from these schemes are licensed bail bonds agencies and bail bonds agents. So they're held at a higher standard. And when it comes to these scammers, none of them are licensed. None of them are licensed. And with this bill, with what it'll help stop with what is going on. And it will allow law enforcement to have that tool to prosecute these people who are taking advantage of people that are at a sense of vulnerability and basically having a fight in this and understanding that it's wrong for someone to use a law enforcement agency's name and also use the title of a sergeant. A sergeant is a person who's earned that position. A lieutenant's a person who earned that position. A deputy is a person who earned that position. So it's one of those things I would recommend contacting the local non-emergency numbers of those places. I would recommend don't call 911, but contact a non-emergency number. It's not an emergency, but or even the jails. You can definitely locate if a person's in custody if you contact the jails.
Yeah. And, again, going on to the web, you might think it's safe to Google, Sacramento County Jail,
yes.
Placer County Jail, and think that you're going to get them. There's websites that are nefarious that will act as though it's the jail website or the Sheriff's Department, Police Department. Trust but verify. Maybe you put in their, main phone number for Sacramento County and get to that. And then off there, it might have the Sheriff's Department but do it right. Again, for those people that are elderly, or if you have elderly parents, or it could be somebody that has memory problems that, dementia can hit people at any age. Have those people, if they do call you, and this is what I said when I was speaking at the senior scam seminar, is don't be embarrassed. Do not be embarrassed. Call a family member and say, listen, I got this phone call and I don't like it. Call somebody, like you said, a trusted family member. So I want to tell a story about what happened. And Brandon was alluding to it a little bit earlier about one of the stories. This is one that happened a while back where one of my agents they were there working on a bond, and there was 5 people in there, Hispanic people, and their son was in jail and they couldn't get a hold of him. And they were sitting there and they they want to bail him out and this, that, and the other. And they were scared. And I was listening to them. And I listened to him enough. And I said, wait a minute. So you haven't talked to your son? Well, no, they put him on the phone, but he couldn't talk because he broke his nose. And I said, wait, hold on. Well, stop. Hold on. They told you he broke his nose, but what did he say? Well, he couldn't talk because he couldn't understand him. And I said, okay, hold on. Stop, settle down, everybody. Like you said, step back, take a breath. First thing I'm going to tell you, your son's not in jail. He's not in jail. No, he called us from jail. No, your son's not in jail. They still didn't believe me. And I then started telling them, did they ask you for money? Yes. Did they ask you to go get gift cards? No, they wanted cash. Did they tell you to put it in an envelope? And the mother held the envelope up with $10 $10,000 cash in that envelope. Thank the good Lord, these people were smart enough. They said, you know what? Let's go to the jail and make sure we're doing the right thing. And they went to the Sacramento County Jail and they looked over and they saw our office. They came into our office, talked to our agent. And I said, keep calling your son on his cell phone. They did. Their son was a teacher. He couldn't answer the phone. Thank God he answered the phone. I remember the father, and there's video of this, the father going over and almost passing out. I had to basically catch him. They were about ready to give a scammer $10,000. So the bottom line with all of this is protecting the public from schemes and scams. And if we can put a stop to bail bond, licensed bail agents calling people, that'll hopefully cut down on the scams.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I believe that with what is occurring is the scams are there and they've always been there. But as for the schemes are just blending in with it.
Yep.
And it's one of those things where it really takes a portion where people lose that trust in us, and we really want to build that back. And there's bad actors in every single industry. So just understand that there are good people out there and there are people who do right, but there are a good amount who do wrong. So we want to just correct that and just make sure everybody's following the law as it's written.
Yeah. And as I said, in our profession, and I've been the president of the Professional Bail Agents of the United States. I served for 2 years, and I represented bail agents across this country. I still do today. And it's something I appreciate, respect. Our profession is made up of some wonderful people across this country. And this podcast, I hope, is shared across this country. This is not about Sacramento. This is about the United States of America and places where they don't have bail bonds in Oregon, Wisconsin, Illinois, Kentucky. The scams are really prevalent there. Please share this, especially with people who might be vulnerable with this. Sit down and watch this. You might think, again, I'm not trying to drum up money for us or the bail bond profession. It's about protecting people from becoming victims of financial scams. So thank you for tuning in to the Powerhouse Podcast. It's been an honor. And son, thanks for taking some time off of work and being here.
Yeah, absolutely. No, anytime.
Take care and thank you. Hi, this is Topo Padilla, and I want to thank my family at Greg Padilla Bail Bonds for sponsoring the Powerhouse Podcast. We are always involved in the community. So if you ever find yourself in need of calling a bail bonds, you can call us at 446-BOND or find us at PadillaBailBonds.com. Sac Life TV and the Powerhouse Podcast want to thank Mosley Collins for his unwavering support of our podcast that keeps people informed. If you ever need legal help, call Mosley Collins Law at 444-4444. That's all fours for legal help. Well, thanks for tuning in to the Powerhouse Podcast, where we bring you fair and balanced discussions on the issues shaping our community. We welcome your input, opposing viewpoints, and guest recommendations, because every voice matters. Have a topic or a guest in mind? Email us at php@saclife.tv.